of time into, let's say, markets, equities, and then looked for industries specifically. There we found the ESG monitor. But what I would like to outline here is something different again. I would like to show you the apps. You reach the apps over here over the app library button. Yeah? Hold on. And down there, you see a lot of apps that already exist within Refinitiv workspace. Quite interestingly for you is actually one when it comes down to asset allocation, or more precisely asset allocation in a mean variance frontier. There's one example that I will talk with you through that is already provided by Refinitiv. If you open up, there's an example case which considers US, so to say. It is about US small cap equity, large cap, non-US developed equity. So it's finally MSCI excluding US. Yeah? Emerging markets equity, US treasuries, US corporate. Well, if we look on non-US developed, we will see obviously that if we press on constituents, wonderful. Does it work? Okay, then we will look it up later on. This is finally Europe and remaining G7 countries. Yeah? So what I would like to outline for you is to show you, if we really want to do an optimization, where are those corner portfolios located, to see it really working. What I could do is, obviously, I could add more and more assets in here. I would not do so right now because this suffices perfectly fine for our case. So if I do press on the optimization output, it takes some time to optimize the portfolio. And then you see really an efficient frontier popping up. According to the so-called Black Litterman model. The Black Litterman model is actually nothing else as mean variance optimization, as we already got to know. However, it includes forecasts. Yeah, it is forward-looking. So there is, instead of just having a matrix of, let's say, returns stemming from the past, there are still some, let's say, vectors remaining for each security that look into the future. Let me show you finally what happens. So here you see, let's look at the unconstrained one. So this is really the unconstrained efficient frontier as we would expect it. So where we are allowed to short sell any asset. Here we have no capital market line included. I will say something on it in a second. Let me show you for the unconstrained how it consists of. So here the minimum variance we have, that's finally small cap US equity 4.75%, then a little bit of large cap US equity, and over 87% US treasuries, which makes sense as they are, let's say, in this setting, very much the most risk-free asset. If we move here along this line, we see that what happened, non-US developed equity started to increase. So what you see in here is actually the small cap US equity vanished completely, right? Let's go a little bit there, over there, over there, over there, over there. So you see already here, there must be somehow a kind of corner. Where I see a sign and where, let's say, weight equaling 0, in this case of non-US developed equity, starts to become positive. So, but however, if we move a little bit along this, what we see is that everything in between here is just scaling up a little bit more non-US developed equity. Then there comes a part starting roughly at 6%, a little bit below, where US corporates are included. So the real S&P 500 US corporates, and they are increasing and increasing and increasing and increasing with non-US equity, increasing. Recall large cap US is still in there as from the beginning. Treasuries are decreasing. Always look on the right hand side, not on the left hand. Until we have at this point 0 US treasuries. If we would regard the US treasuries as our risk-free asset, this would be the optimal portfolio on the capital allocation line. And this would be our offspring point to draw the capital market line, so to say, or the capital allocation line, as tangency. You see not a lot of movement here in those areas, right? You see only that non-US developed equity is becoming more and more relevant. And I can already show you, okay, here up here, it's almost non-US developed equity. And then, so this is a corner portfolio. What happens is, to really get the high standard deviation shit, we include more and more emerging markets. So what you see is here, we almost identified just by clicking through 3 to 4 or 5 corner portfolios. And you've seen that in the middle, let's say between, let me pick this one and this one, I think. Oh, where was it? Here, somewhere here. In the middle between the yellow and this selected portfolio, what you see here is there was not a lot of going on. We just simply changed the weights, right? We changed the weights between fully being in non-US developed equity and being, let's say, down here in US corporates and large cap US equity. And this was directly what we discussed before, and Moritz said this wonderful answer finally, or recap, so to say, that actually between those corner portfolios, it's just a mixture. And if we have identified the corner portfolios, we kind of can draw a straight line. If you look on this here, it's almost linear. It's not completely linear. There's still a little bit of curvature inside. Yeah, but recall down here, we have here as x-axis scale the standard deviation. And as I've shown it to you with standard deviation, the efficient frontier looks more straight lined. If we would do variance, it would be definitely more curved. Questions so far?
How do we get to that point in EIKON again? I think I missed the first 10 seconds and then we were already.
Okay. Let's navigate to the home screen. This is the one which will be open if you open EIKON, if you open Workspace. Yeah. Then you can either go to the app lib down here or to those app library as those windows indicate here in the left upper corner. Simply press it. and then they are opening many different apps. Yeah? And one app is under portfolio management, and these are the top picks, and the top pick is obviously asset allocation. Yeah? And here simply press on open. Then the first thing that comes up is the example case. I would really recommend to first, let's say, have playing around with this example case. It helps to understand what happens. For instance, including the DAX or something like this. Yeah? What is the rig for the DAX? GDAX E. And there you go. Always put in the rig, and then usually it works quite well. Yeah. And you can alter the whole table with all kinds of measurements that you would like to have. Here, what you see is he is currently calculating the covariance matrix. Now it's switched from red, so you always have to wait. Yeah? You can even look at the correlation matrix. Yeah? What you see here is obviously the correlation that it's all those indexes, the stock indexes are highly correlated. Small cap US with Deutsche Börse DAX is roughly 75, yeah, 0.75. Let's pick the DAX with the large cap US, it's almost 0.8. So you see that all those big indexes around the globe, and obviously in it, the securities are highly correlated. What you see here is obviously, and that was pointed out, initial discussion where David and I were discussing about, let's say, what is with the approximation of and risk-free asset. Here you see US treasuries are definitely not risk-free because they have a correlation against all of the other indexes. A negative one, yes, fine, but recall our requirement for a risk-free asset should be there is no correlation. I mean, could be living with a correlation of 0.00 something, yeah, but not a correlation of negative 0.32 is definitely not, let's say, to be neglected. Yeah? So now let's look what happens if we include the DAX or have included the DAX and look at the efficient frontier. The efficient frontier has a little bit changed. We see the DAX is over here at 7% return and standard deviation roughly 20%. So very close to non-US developed equity. Makes sense that they're close together. Now let's look. We see there is the Turkish thing is Turkey is DAX. Let us play through it. We have to admit that the DAX is, here it is. So somewhere here's a corner portfolio where the DAX is finally getting into. Yeah? So, and then the DAX gets more and more weight, but remains quite low at its weights. This might be the case of the high correlation, and it might be the case because we have already here included this yellowish non-US developed equity. So why it's completely irrelevant specifically for those higher returns. Yeah? What you also see is, and this could happen, that some assets are actually lying on the efficient frontier. Yeah? So they are efficient by themselves, but usually these are, if you find it, they are by themselves a corner portfolio. Let me make one example out of Germany. For several years, you have found, let's say, Fresenius Medical Care quite up here as being on the right-hand top corner on the efficient border. Luca.
Yeah, one quick question. So, but in the Excel, in our case study, that's what we should not do, right? Have like just one asset in our portfolio, even though it would be efficient.
Yeah, the problem is would be, let's say, communicating to Credit Suisse, or let's say stating this, okay, how could this be the case? This is a very short-term oriented. By looking at the scenarios in the case questions, you may probably have a more diversified portfolio. Yeah? Okay, with the example case, what I've did here is just to note up here on the right-hand side, there's this Excel export function, where it exports for you finally for the unconstrained portfolio, the weights and the standard deviations and so on for all those. You see the standard deviation and expected return of the portfolio, and here you see the weights of each of those portfolios. I'm just stating this because you can, if you want to, obviously use this tool as well. Yeah? As we said, there are many ways to roam. Okay. Do you have any questions? Yeah, Maurice, please.
Yes, so I guess one of the hardest tasks relating to task 2 will be to actually choose the stocks and securities, right? So is there an option to sort of dynamically pull in and move out, or even maybe give like 100 securities and say, okay, I only want 50 in my portfolio, so that then EIKON tells us, okay, look at these 50 out of those 100.
I did not get your question right. So you're aiming at finally finding, let's say, from a huge amount of assets to reduce them dynamically, yeah? And such that a computer does it for you, right? I have shown you the last time, and let me do this again, this markets and industries. Maurice, you may recall maybe, this industries selector. And here, in a way, it is hand collected, but still a bit more automatic, because you can obviously search for specific equities that are, how should I put it, less exposed to being non-ESG conform. So let me take one, you pick one industry. First come, first served. Which industry should I pick?
Let's do utilities.
Utilities, okay, perfect. Let's take utilities. So, and let's look into ESG directly. So, what we see is obviously that if we look down here, there are definitely no German names, right? There's Enel from at least the European one, however, only A, having a controversy score which is D, so lowest possible, almost zero. However, is, let's say, very good in using resources. If we go downwards, we see that there are some that are not even rated yet. So, but just to outline again, here you could select and even, let me make an example, do filtering. I would like to have only those with the lowest possible score between 3.9, wrong. What's going on? And 20. So I get the lowest ESG performing equities. This is how I would do it. Obviously, this is yet not the best case to look for the lowest performing, but to show you what to do. And what you can always do is, let's say, add another more filters, yeah, for instance, for the emission score. But this highly depends on, let's say, the funnel that you have prepared for you. I mean, going from, I know, Maurice, going from a data perspective is, let's say, going with a big, let's say, bunch of data into and then analyze it is very quantitative approach to do so. And I really would recommend this. Well, you could do so. However, the other approach is really to think about what are those, and that's why we recommend highly to watch the videos in your flexible time on Monday, because they talk about super trends. And if you look at those super trends, they are very much forward-looking. Forward-looking in the sense that they really care about agriculture. And then with agriculture, you're definitely at, let's say, directly the agriculture industry. Second, the chemical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and so on and so far.
So it's basically a two-step process. We go into this industry page, select the companies that are interesting to us according to our super trends and scores, and then we go into the portfolio allocation, put in those chosen companies, and then we can see, okay, this is the portfolio that we should, or that we could offer.
Right. The other possibility is that you, let's say, yeah, you have selected corporations already, maybe based upon this ESG, and then you simply download, as I've shown you the last time, the data into Excel. Should I show it again?
Can you show again how to change the period? Because I seem to be too stupid to Google or find it.
The period in the Excel?
Yeah, if it's like just day or year wise. But
yes, I will do so. Let me directly jump into it. I have to stop screen sharing and go into Refinitiv Excel workspace. I will share my screen again directly in Excel. Okay, what I've did is I've went to the Refinitiv tab again, and then pressed here, this is the first one, directly login. That has been already done because I'm online already. So what I do is, usually I take this data stream formula approach. The data stream formula approach is, let's say, the one most often used actually in practice as well in academia, because it uses the data directly and sources it into Excel. Let me take a list. First of all, I press here on filtering, find series. And then it's more like Google, or let's perfectly take Siemens first because it's already in there. Watch out. Sometimes after you've selected maybe an equity, let's for instance think about Siemens. There's Siemens India. Obviously, if we look for the Siemens we are all thinking of, it is this one. Let's take as next one Amazon. Amazon.com, NASDAQ listed perfectly fine. So let's take the next AMD. Advanced micro devices down here, NASDAQ, United States, perfect. What else? Any idea? Any wish? Okay, then I will simply use those stocks. And what I do now is here, I can change down here the frequency. The frequency for price data is obviously daily. So, and if I don't plug anything in here, it will simply download prices.
Perfect, thank you. I think my mistake was that I went with build formula and yeah, didn't find it.
It takes some time, obviously, because let's say Zoom and Refinitiv is a little bit contradictory because both use quite a huge amount of bandwidth. So whatever, but this is how it works actually in Excel. If I go on, if I'm lying still in the cell, in the first one, top notch, then looking on data stream formula brings me back to my original request. Here you can directly choose dates. You could even do cell references. So meaning, let me show you. You select one cell, and there you simply change the data, the date where you would like to start from. So building up a real structured sheet from the beginning to the end, having, let's say, one table usually where, let's say, says start date, and then here says something, okay, 1st 2020. And then you simply select this one, select, and then you would choose another cell directly below and start so. The same actually holds here as well. You can select a series from sheets. So if you have ISINs, so International Security Identification Numbers or RICs, you can simply have them in one sheet, in one Excel sheet, and then select them and it will use it directly and plug it in. Any further questions? If not, then we are already at the end of our today's lecture. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for